In today's latest news, we have some big updates behind Victor Osimhen as well as Manu Kone, but that isn't all. We also discuss Andre Onana because it does seem like Onana may be on the shortlist for goalkeepers in the summer window. And to end things, we discuss temporary stadiums we could play in as Stamford Bridge is getting redeveloped. So right now we have a ton of things to break down and discuss. I hope you guys are happy, and I hope you guys are happy to see my face again. I wasn't actually expecting to be away for like 7 days, but to be honest, I've been working on so many secret projects behind the scenes that I think this is like really the only time possible for me to actually have the time to work on all these side projects. And I'm going to reveal what these projects are hopefully sometime in April, so you guys bear with me, but I think some of you are going to be very excited, so I hope you enjoy. Of course, let's get 1500 likes for today's video. Get involved in the comments, and without wasting any more time, so right now, let's start with things and let's break down the article released today by the Daily Mail, where it shares some insight behind the possible temporary stadiums we may look to play in as Stamford Bridge is getting redeveloped. Now, to give you guys some context first, the reason why we look to find a ground share solution first compared to remaining at Stamford Bridge and then redeveloping the stadium stand by stand is simply due to costs. It's the slowest, most expensive way for us to be able to build a new stadium. And when you have a budget between 1.5 billion to 2 billion, that makes sense. And ideally, you don't want to go over a budget that's already as big as like 1.5 to 2 billion. So a ground share solution is the best thing currently. And as the article details, possible stadiums being looked into are Twickenham, Craven Cottage, the London Stadium, as well as Wembley Stadium as well too. Now there's tons of pros and cons behind each one. For example, like a pro for me is the fact that if we went to Wembley, which ideally would be the stadium I want us to be in, I'm being selfish. I live near Wembley. That would make my life a lot easier. But there are other solutions being looked into, and currently Todd Bowley and co are actively holding many meetings with owners and sports teams across London to find the best possible solution for us fans, because I really think that with a ground share solution, it can't be too far away from Stamford Bridge. It has to be kind of near that area to make it easier for fans to get to the stadium. It can't be anything crazy like having to travel to Milton Keynes, way out of the way to play games there. That makes sense for absolutely no one. And in the article too, it did detail some interesting possibilities. Now, we got a list of possible stadiums we could play in, and they ranged from Twickenham to the Chelsea Stadium, which is Reading United Stadium, to the London Stadium, West Ham Stadium, Wembley as well too, and Craven Cottage. Now, there's pros and cons behind each stadium, and I think the main cons for stadiums like the Chelsea Stadium is the travel destination. I mean, it's way far from Stamford Bridge, and I kind of feel like if we could potentially be playing games away from Stamford Bridge for the next 3 to 4 years, the main priority has to be accessibility for fans. It needs to be easy for fans to travel there and commute to, and I feel like stadiums like the London Stadium, the Chelsea Stadium, they're out the window because that's a massive hassle to have to get there, especially the West Ham United Stadium. I mean, for example, imagine the cost needed for security due to that historical rivalry between both fan groups. It just doesn't really make too much sense. Now, what is quite interesting though is the possible solution for both Twickenham and Craven Cottage, because the article does report the fact that we could possibly look to share both stadiums, and it would work like this. So we'd use Fulham Stadium for Champions League games, and then we'd use the Twickenham Stadium for Premier League games. The great thing about this is that both stadiums are like 10-15 minutes away from Stamford Bridge, so both are still within the geographical region that's needed to make fans' lives easier. But if I had to pick one stadium, I'd probably pick Wembley Stadium, and the purely selfish reason behind why is that I live near Wembley. It would make my life personally a lot easier to get to. But irrespective of that, Tottenham were there for a few seasons. It wasn't too bad. You can also host Champions League games there as well too, and I think Wembley is quite straightforward to get to using the Metropolitan line. So that is the first article out the way. But the thing is, our deadline is 2030. That is the deadline we're hoping is the completion date for a new stadium. So a lot's going to happen in these next few years, and I think finding solutions for where we're going to play our games over the next few years is absolutely key. And it's good these talks are being held right now to make this move happen. So that's the first story out of the way. Let's now move on to discussing the second story, and we have more updates behind Manu Kone. Now, this report comes courtesy of Fabrizio Romano on his YouTube channel, and he reports that Arsenal and Paris Saint-Germain are two of the favourite clubs currently to sign Manu Kone in the summer. Now, you guys, I hope you watched my previous video breaking down Manu Kone, giving the analysis, how he plays, and the insight behind him as a player as well too. I'm going to have a link to that in the card above or description too as well. But realistically, this is most likely his final season at Gladbach. And I guess the big news is that we got some clarification behind the valuation that Gladbach would want to sell Kone in the summer, and that's around 50 million euros. So that's like around 43 million pounds. I think that is incredibly fair for a player like Manu Kone, like a guy that is like a pretty unique player in my personal opinion. Of course, he's still quite young. He's not perfect to complete. Most guys under 24 aren't going to be complete at all. It just doesn't really work like that. But in terms of what this guy is elite at already, his dribbling skills, 1v1 play, outstanding. I mean, the composure, his ability to like protect the ball in tight spaces, to receive in tight spaces, and then to always play forward. That's a quality that is most definitely needed. The guy defensively in his like 1v1 duels and ground tackles and covering distances is very high as well too. And I think in terms of his like progressive passes, he does that. And as I was saying in that video, Manu Kone would be a ball-winning midfield player. So that's like a lot more technical version of a defensive midfield player. And it's quite obvious that for Enzo Fernandez, if he wants a bit more license to affect the game in the final third of the field, he needs to have that imposing, authoritative guy alongside him to really just take that midfield partnership to like a different level. And I think Manu Kone easily fits that type of bill. But it's quite interesting though, right? You're looking at guys like Declan Rice, Romeo Lavia, and Manu Kone as like the three main candidates that I think are quite obviously being looked at and targeted. Now when it comes to your Rices, your Lavias and your Kones, I can kind of picture certain guys at our club that are leaning towards each player, but I think ultimately price and value is going to be the main thing, and that's going to be fully dependent on FFP. That's going to be fully dependent on whether we get Champions League football and whether we don't, because if we don't get that, then we understand that there's going to be a ton of sales happening in the summer window to give us more flexibility to sign guys again in the summer. So then it does make more sense that you might prefer leaning towards a Romeo Lavia and a Manu Kone, who are considerably less compared to a Declan Rice, and that could be the play and the way forwards. At the same time, with the abundance of talent we have in our squad right now, you know, what is like the actual play? What is like the grand scheme and goal? Are we going to be like a 4-2-3-1 team where you have like one guy partnered alongside Enzo Fernandez, because Enzo Fernandez is first team, no one gets ahead of him because he really is that good. But then if that's a pivot position you have in your team, and you have a squad that has N'Golo Kante, a Mason Mount you're trying to keep, maybe a Conor Gallagher that's there as well too, and Andre Santos that has literally just made his debut for the Brazil national team squad, is one of the brightest team prospects in world football right now too, alongside guys like Rubens and Enzo's. I mean, that is a lot of talent to have in midfield for like one more position in the team. What is the play behind that? Like for example, if we have an Andre Santos, doesn't make sense to go for Romeo Lavia. Like, do you need to have two like team talents fighting out to make one first team spot? You know, I'm not too sure. Personally, I don't have like any easy answers for this. I'm gonna hope that the transfer team, the manager, people at the club have some insight behind how the squad is gonna be shaped up for next summer and for future seasons too. But I think how you use your midfield is the most important thing, because midfield really dictates what type of team you are. Are you a counter-attacking team? Are you a possession-based team? Are you an attacking team? You know, all those details like that. But regardless, Rice, Lavia, Kone, I kind of feel like Lavia and Kone are the favourites right now due to their age, their potential, and most importantly, the prices around them. So that is the second story out of the way. Share your thoughts and opinions. Let's now move on to the third story, and we talk Victor Osimhen, because the report coming out from Footy Insider reports that we are prepared to bid 100 million to try and sign Osimhen in the summer window. Now, that's interesting because reports in Italy suggest that Napoli want around like 130, 120 million to sell Osimhen, but he only has 2 years left in his deal. If he's already putting out feelers that he wants to leave Napoli in the summer and come to the Premier League, there's only so much money realistically that Napoli could ask for. So I think there's some flexibility around the price in my personal opinion. But regardless, Osimhen has a ton of interest for him, especially for Man United. We can't sleep on Man United because they have the finances and they need a striker of his profile to elevate them. So if we're trying to sign Osimhen without Champions League football, for example, could that work against us? I like to think not personally because, of course, Osimhen has like a soft spot for us. He's a fan, growing up as a kid, and his idol is Didier Drogba. So if there was one guy that could persuade Osimhen to sign for us to take over from his legacy, that would be Didier Drogba. And I think Osimhen, from a tactical point of view with this team, is the perfect striker really that complements, the players we have and the team are trying to become. Personally, I feel like we would definitely have the money for an Osimhen because we're going to sell a lot of players. But at the same time, this is where I want to give my thoughts and opinions. I was on the Simon Phillips podcast recently and I was asked this question, what am I doing up front? And I had to put my hands up. I don't know what the play or plan is. Considering the talent we have right now, you're looking at a Havertz, you're looking at Joao Felix that is most likely staying with us, you're looking at Nkunku, Mudryk, Sterling, Madueke, guys like Breuer, guys like Fofana, etc. We have so much talent where it's kind of like, let's say you take away Fofana and Breuer that could possibly go out on loan for next season. You're still left with tons of quality attacking players, and if you're adding an Osimhen on top of that, how do you use all this talent together? Like, can you get by on rotation alone? Because let me point this question out too. If we don't get Champions League football and play no Europe, how can you maintain the happiness of a squad like this over a whole season without European football for a squad of this quality and size? I'm not too sure about that. And my question is, does it make sense for us to spend tons of money on Osimhen and then prioritize creating goals for him? Or instead, do we look to maybe spread the goals out over the existing talent that we have at our disposal at this point in time? Because if I was to ask you guys this, let's say Osimhen is our player in the summer. Let's say Joao Felix does sign, which realistically is probably going to happen at this point, right? What is your attacking lineups? Like, you guys in the comments, like, this is the question I'm asking you. What is your attacking lineup for next season? Use whatever formation you want to use. Let us know below. But I guarantee you there's going to be tons of different answers. So many variables, so many different formations that's in the comment section, because there's no like real straightforward answer behind, what is the best way? Do we use a 4-2-3-1 and have like 4 attackers? Do we use a 3-4-3 or 4-3-3? If you're doing that, that means certain guys aren't getting on the field. And I'm just really curious as to how things are going to work out. I guess to end things, if we're signing Osimhen, the only way this works out for me currently is if some surprise guys are going to be sold in the summer window. I'm not talking about Mason Mount. I'm looking at guys like maybe Raheem Sterling, maybe Kai Havertz potentially might decide this, and I've been here for a few years now. I want to move on and progress elsewhere. Maybe interest from Bayern Munich or elsewhere could entice Kai to leave, because realistically, I just can't see us fitting Osimhen alongside all this existing talent and expecting everyone to be happy, because attackers are the most expensive guys. They're on the biggest wages, and I don't want to recreate the Ziyech, Pulisic nonsense that Tuchel had to manage through. That makes sense for no one. So as I'm saying, I've got no definitive answer on this, but I'm really curious to read your guys' opinions on this story, so let us know below. So on that note, my friends, that is the end for today's news videos. I hope you guys enjoyed. Share your thoughts and opinions below in the comment section. And on that note, I'm Nini FC, this is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.